Rising above the Ardeatino quarter on Via Appia Antica in Rome, Italy, are the Hypogeum Cemetery known as the Catacombs of San Sebastiano. There aren't many Christian cemeteries like this one, and it has always been open to the public. The top level, which was formerly 4 stories tall, is now nearly entirely demolished. Catacombs, an old Greek word meaning close to the cavity, kata plus kimbe, was the common name for the catacombs in antiquity. An obvious depression in the earth may still be seen today along the Appian Way, near the cemetery. In addition, the territory was formerly home to pozzolan mines, which are currently located around 10 meters above the floor of the Basilica of San Sebastiano, fuori le mura. These mines gave birth to a pagan cemetery, which was later utilized by Christians. Over time, the term catacombas was expanded and assimilated to refer to all hypogeum burial places, which are now commonly known as catacombs. In the 3rd century, the subterranean cemetery began to be known as In Memory Apostolorum, a toponym that denoted the presence of the remains of the apostles Peter and Paul beneath the catacomb. It had been named di San Sebastiano from the early Middle Ages. The recurrence of Peter in catacombas and Paul on Via Ostiensis are discussed in the Depositio Martyrum, which dates back to the second part of the 4th century, and specifically to June 29th. Similarly, in the 5th century, the Martyrologium Hieronymianum mentions Peter's return to the Vatican, Paul's journey over the Via Ostiensis, and the appearance of Tusco and Basso before the council. The burial site on the Appian Way is said by ancient writers to have been visited by 3 martyrs: Eutychius, Quirinus, and Sebastian. Notula Oliorum, a catalogue from the 7th century, lists the names of the martyrs. Nevertheless, pilgrims' itineraries from the early Middle Ages exclude Eutychius because of how difficult it was to access the tomb. Regarding Sebastian, his burial in catacombas on January 20th is remembered in the Depositio Martyrum. According to St. Ambrose, who lived at the end of the 4th century, he was born in Milan and died as a martyr in Rome during the persecution of Diocletian. The 5th century Passio states that he was a soldier from Narbonne in Gaul, who was born into a Milanese family and died in Rome at the hands of Diocletian. Very little else is known about him. His remains were originally housed in the catacomb, but were relocated inside the town walls in the 9th century. They are presently held in the Chapel of Saint Sebastian, which is located in the basilica above the cemetery, on the Appian Way once again. Pilgrims from the area of Seschia, in Pannonia, carried the remains of the Bishop Quirinus to Rome Sommatim during the 4th and 5th century. The only thing we know about Eutychius is that his tomb was found during 20th century excavations in a crumbling section of the catacombs. A poem dedicated to him by Pope Damasus is currently on display at the entrance of the basilica. The 3-story galleries that house the catacombs were able to have their topography and architectural history reconstructed by excavations that took place at the tail end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th centuries. In what was once a pozzolan mine, the area was deserted at the end of the 2nd century and used by the Romans as a pagan burial ground. Here, in the so-called piazzola, little square, a circular compartment that had been an open-cast mine, were dug 3 mausoleums, along with simple graves for slaves and freedmen. The 3rd. It is possible that Christians were laid to rest in these mausoleums at a later date, given they include Christian iconographies like the anchor and the fish, especially in the so-called Mausoleum of Innocentiores. During this time, excavations for the piazzola and the burial galleries also began. The whole piazzola was filled in to form an embankment at a higher level about the middle of the 3rd century. On this shelf, 3 artifacts have been discovered: a covered area with a well for water drawing, a marble-upholstered edicule that served as a storage space for the apostles' relics while they were transported in catacombs, and the so-called triclea, a covered porticoed hall used for burial banquets, whose walls bear over 600 graffiti invocations to Peter and Paul. The transference of the apostles' relics from their original locations at the beginning of the 4th century to San Sebastiano in the middle of the 3rd century is a subject that academics and archaeologists continue to argue over.